Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whether you might be in the world. I'm so nervous about the start of this that I forgot the start of this. That's because, well, who knows what's. Look, I even, for the purposes of this exercise, poured myself a little glass of port, and I come with the suitable protection.
And I have a
just
little
ready
stub
for this. Yeah, there we are. And Johnny G's after he's going to go flying his maiden his new T1. Good luck to you there, Johnny. And I know Johnny there in America is a great fan of RID, and
as we all chat,
he expresses his desire to jump in there and be right on part of it. So then, how should we do this? I don't know. Look. Over on a thing, I know. Let's go. Share the screen here, and let's go here. Over on a thing on Grown Ups Facebook, Stephen put well, it's not even Grown Ups Facebook, is it really? Put this little post about saying goodbye to the hobby, mentioning Bruce, and it has elicited.
I didn't mention Bruce.
Did you not? But it's his video.
Yes, but I didn't mention Bruce because Bruce is not on LinkedIn.
No.
Oh, I see.
Be on LinkedIn. Jeez.
He's too cool.
Let's call it mention.
Mention. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, you see, I don't know any of this stuff. So this kicked off a lively conversation, which has ended up with these fellows being in the same room, i.e. this room. And we're going to discuss the pros and cons of remote ID now. In your own time, carry on. Well, that didn't go well, did it? Yeah.
And in summary,
in summary, it's quite easy. We don't like it. Stephen likes it. End of.
No. When have I ever said I liked it?
To his credit, if you read down, he clearly doesn't like the implementation. He just disliked what.
Yeah. I think there's been some.
We got some of the more facts later, but these guys actually agree with each other. But it was a good headline and therefore good clickbait and got us all to bite.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you. That was a very good way of putting it. It's a very good way of putting it because I'm not saying that I'm in favor of remote ID, but I'm not saying I'm not in favor of it because what we have here in the EU and what we have here in Finland, where I am, it's non-existent. It's really non-existent. So remote ID is like.
Hang on. Did you just say you're in Finland at the moment?
Yes.
And it's non-existent in Finland?
Yes.
But wasn't the premise of your thing that this guy, I'll get this eventually, I'm going to point the opposite direction, is in a country that doesn't have and will never have.
No. Okay. What I mean by that is that we do have remote ID. We do have it, but
in Finland,
it's non-existent. It doesn't. It's like. It's like farting in the wind, right? It makes no difference, right? It makes no difference at all because we have no back end system here, and I think that this is a good conversation where
actually,
it should.
That's not true. Finland does have a back end system. It's not theirs, but have you ever been to droneshare.qpilot.com?
Yes, but we don't. But there's no system here that keeps everything, that's storing anything. There is no system.
Hey? We're storing it.
Yeah, but it means government-wise.
Okay, so what are you storing there?
We're storing any data we record from Drone ID.
Okay, but where is it coming from?
Open source.
Yeah, but where is it? So I mean, if I fly a drone, where is that data coming from?
From other people anywhere near you that happen to be able to pick it up.
Okay, but how do we know what that data is, or where is that data being picked up? I mean, that's something we don't see, and that's something that they don't see either because we don't have any information. Okay, Please show me what I'm because I don't see this.
Okay. This
And you
is
should
this
see
is
my flights because I've been flying a lot.
And as you can see at the moment, whoever's on this isn't logged in, but it's in beta at the moment. So most of the data is just being stored. If you zoom down into Australia, I'm really doing well with my digital ID here.
Okay.
That's a little rover that's spurting out the appropriate information, and it's keeping my paddock in my back paddock nice and free of weeds down in my farm down in Australia, and it's pretty easy for everyone to figure out who and what that is due to the fact that it's the demo program on DroneShare at the moment. But basically, we can gather anyone's data, and whether it's ADSB or whether it's drone ID, and store it in our servers and do what we want to do with it later.
So if I put on a drone right now, would you be able to see that if there was anything picking it up?
Yeah, if someone was running the stuff nearby, like obviously like Flight Radar 24, it started off pretty pathetic and empty. But as people became more interested, more and more people started submitting their data to Flight Radar 24. And it's become quite a valuable source of information, intelligence, and investigation tool, actually.
Is it true that you've registered the domain name Karen.net?
So another one. What type of sensors nearby would have been picking that up, or would be picking it up, for example?
Most mobile phones have all the capabilities required to pick up the European or US drone ID.
The US, okay, but we know, for example, that we know that the iPhones are not picking up that information. Is that right?
I know the iPhones aren't, but the Androids are.
Okay.
The iPhone will pick up the Ethernet one, and and they'll pick up some of the Bluetooth. They won't pick up all of it.
Okay.
The Androids pick up pretty much everything.
Okay, I would like to see my data from somewhere. I would really like to see my data coming in from somewhere. I'm now wanting to actually see this. I want to.
Download then you just start your drone, and then you can
share.
Yeah. Okay. As Bruce says.
Okay, so I'm actually what I'm actually planning to do as a social experiment, because I think social acceptance is a big thing for what we're doing here. I was planning to fly basically all day. And I want to see if someone does come and actually, someone picks up my signal.
I don't expect anyone to yet. The reality is that it's going to take a while for the Karens to catch on. I mean, that's reality. We're not talking about drone ID turns up today and people are going to die today.
It'll take a story in the Daily Mail.
And I think I'll use the example from good old Elon Musk and his family on the Flight Radar 24 data. People tracked down his family and gave, I'm not sure which one of his families, he's got a few, but so they tracked them down and harassed them at the airport when they got there, using the ADSB data, which is freely available, even though, people think that it's some miracle that someone managed to track his jet. It's pretty easy to track someone's vehicle. And unfortunately, with the European system and the American system, it's extremely easy to figure out who someone is. We make the remote ID modules for Europe and the US. We've had to register our modules with their hardware serial number, their unique ID, with the European system. And so each of those individual tags is going to be very identifiable. This is the bit that I hate the most about the system. If you fired it up and it gave some random serial number every time you fired it up, that would be a significant improvement, because then every time you fired it up, it would be, okay, there's a drone there. We don't know who it is. It's probably a good player because they're actually broadcasting the location, but at least we have some information. Whereas because it's a consistent serial number on the European system and the American system, you can start gathering information.
Just to jump in, Philip, So really, the risk is with it being the hard-coded serial number that's always present. Is the moment, and this was part of the problem with remote ID, certainly with DJI, and I assume it's the same with these systems. Is the moment you turn it on, it's transmitting. So if you turn it on to do a firmware flash, which is one of the first things you do when you get your drone,
at your
it's
house,
recorded you at your house. So then that's how you know who it is and where it is, because you'll be able to see that in the history when people are capturing the data.
Yeah. And that's where you're going to start to be able to build up a story on people. Now, let's be really, really blunt here. I'm going to be a little bit controversial about who really pushed the topic of drone ID in the first place and what was their motivation behind it. And, it is a little TLA company from Shenzhen that has the most active pusher of this technology. I got contacted by one of our OEMs yesterday who sent me a direct quote of DJI threatening them that if they continued their behavior, their behavior being to identify what a certain company was doing. Like stuff like that's pretty scary. That's a lot of the motivation behind this, and I won't go into obviously that government's theories and beliefs, but I personally don't like the idea of having to broadcast my personal information, even though I choose to do it. I mean, I just gave you a demo that was at my farm, so I'm not very good protecting my own identity, but I'm pretty easy to track down. Other people have more reasons not to be tracked down than I do, and I understand why people don't want to be. Let's just pretend you're a reporter and you have discovered some dodgy police behaviour going on, and you would like to use your drone to film a deal between, say, said dodgy police officer and some dodgy, let's go with a mafia hitman. Let's go a little bit dramatic just because it's fun. You use your drone for that. Well, even later, the guy can go back and go, oh crap, there was a drone in the area. It's this guy. I can tell that because of the historic data. Then said person over there and says, don't talk about what happens, or bad things will happen to you in a good scenario. This is real data that people can use. We're not talking about data that only the police have access to. So in this scenario, that would be bad too. We're talking about the freedom of the press to be able to actually do their job. We're talking about normal citizens being able to get on with life without accidentally being accused of filming something that they didn't want to be.
Just to jump in 1 second, Philip, just so the point you made there is, and we put it on the show, it was kind of a faux pas, but an RAF team in the UK that were involved with the counter drone, a guy fresh out of training, he listed out the bad actors, and he listed out it was hobbyists and journalists. He didn't even say criminals or terrorists, and so that concerns me that they are one of the specifically identified groups where they're seen as a threat with the drone. So really, it's about the fact that it gives you the ability to capture just scenes that aren't so easy when you're on the ground, where people, you can be physically blocked.
Gary, can you play that video?
Which video, mate?
The one that you were just had up on the screen of the whoopsie by a particular drone counter.
I will. I'll bring it. I'll bring it in, and I'll introduce Niall as well. Hello, Niall from Neuron. Sorry, we haven't said hello to you. Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us. And now I will, and just jump in when you get angry with us. It's fine. So I'll just go with the stills on this. So my friend Dave pointed out that this track had come up on ADSB Exchange, and it allows you. Did that just change tab? I haven't seen it allows you to see previous flights for this track, and look, that happens to be right next to Network Rail, and then oh, looky, it's also been flying near us. And so, you know, it didn't take much work to zoom in on Google Maps and see that it's being tested by a counter-UAS company. And I'm not sure why they're still allowed to have it on, actually. Or maybe I just tried it and it was off. But it was on for a couple of days. And it just shows you, with a little bit of thinking, just how much you can expose about these things. That David Walters, it's his fault. That is his fault. Right, I shall stop sharing this. Yeah. It was a very interesting exercise of what can be uncovered. And it won't take much to uncover it for RID. Let me present another as ever, slick as ever. Let me just put this. Look, you just go on to the Play Store. This Air Sentinel, which quote unquote hasn't taken off yet, this is for aggregating RID data, exactly as Philip suggested. Just like his site, just like Drone Share, that's what they want to do. And it's coming. It'll happen, and it's not cool. I don't have better words to say.
How do we compare this to what we're seeing every day with social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, where they are gathering our data, and we know they're gathering our data, and they're following everything that we do. You know, whether it's your smartwatch, whether it's your phone or your tablet or whatnot. This, you know, these are just other devices in a sense, and I'm not trying to justify it. I'm just saying that, you know, we do, you know, we don't care about the other things, but suddenly we care about this. You know,
but some of us do. Some of us do care about them. If you've got any nouts about it, you care. But I think to me, my biggest problem with RID is it doesn't increase air safety. We all want air safety. That's what we all want. But one way or another,
I'll give you
for dangerousness.
So here's your example of Google. So I just went back on my timeline on Friday, the 19th of January, 2024. If I look back at my timeline, this is where I drove. You can tell me all sorts of things about where I was.
You can turn all that off. So on some of my accounts, I literally have everything turned off.
You can if you want to. I think the difference is a criminal would have to get access to my stuff and do criminal behavior to get this information. Now, okay, Google's got, which, you know, let's skip that topic. Facebook's probably got the same. And yes, you voluntarily give that information to them when you agree to use them. Now, good luck not using Google these days, but you do voluntarily give that to them. The information we're talking about here, nobody's giving to us. We are just stealing it out of the airwaves in reality, but it's free to take. It's you turn your remote ID on, and by default, you have given people permission. Now, in the UK, it's a little bit, there's some grey areas in whether you've got permission to get this data or not. But at the end of the day, you know, yeah.
So I know that Ian has been talking recently about some counter UAS stuff that's been happening in the UK. I mean, I'm actually, you know, okay. So here in Finland right now, you know, I'm in Helsinki, and you'll know that we've just joined NATO and stuff like that, and we're just next door to Russia. So things are a bit sensitive here, right? Okay. Now, I mean, Helsinki is a very, or let's say Finland's a very liberal place to fly. We can pretty much fly anywhere. You know, the authorities are really supportive, and we have good social acceptance here. But literally 70 meters from where I'm sitting here, I have the Parliament House over there, and there's a no-fly zone, and it's not on the DJI maps or anything. And then just about further down, we have the President's Place as well. There's a no-fly zone there. Now, if you fly over that, you know, if you just cross that border, you will get nabbed, right? So we know there's counter UAS there, and there was an incident 2 weeks ago where one of my pilots was actually flying next to the president's place, but he was outside of the no-fly zone. He launched a sub 250, so he wasn't, he wasn't broadcasting remote ID. So he was just, flying a sub 250. It was minus 20, right? It was really cold. And within 2 minutes, there was a van pulling up, and there was 2 guys came out and said, "Land your drone." And he's like, "No, because I'm not over the no-fly zone. I'm actually legal here." Like, no, land the drone now. And he's like, "No." And so there was a bit of a standoff. And then what happened was 2 seconds later, he seen a drone flying back from the president's palace, which went back behind him. And he said to the security guys, he said, "I think you want that drone." To which guy, the guys jumped into the van and chased. The other guy was actually a tourist from Moldova, flying an Air 2S, not broadcasting remote ID. So I mean, in a way, it just shows that even not broadcasting remote ID right now, they're watching you. They are watching, and I've actually seen in the UK.
Flying at DJI, you are broadcasting remote ID, whether you think you are or not. Just remember that. What you're doing is broadcasting non-compliant remote ID. This is compliant remote ID, of which most authorities for their remote ID and other scanning are using Aeroscope anyway. In Australia, using Aeroscope, but it's still just DJI Aeroscope. And at the end of the day, when it comes to counter UAS, I dare not say that maybe Aeroscope is still the best available system out there, because it actually works for picking up what it's advertised to pick up, as opposed to everything else that only picks up what Aeroscope can pick up anyway. There's 2 or 3 companies out there that are actually good.
Phil, I got jammed in Taiwan 2 years ago. I got jammed in Kaohsiung.
Of course you did. But I also know the gear they're using here, and it's not from any of those big loud companies on LinkedIn.
But of course, the beautiful thing DJI's doing is they're changing to Aeroscope 2, which is encrypted, which means that everybody's got to go out and buy it again. So that's a fantastic thing. All you got to do is do it every 5 years and make everybody completely rebuy their system.
No. To be fair, the DJI themselves, if you've got it already, they're sending out the module and they're doing it for free. So
I didn't know that. God bless them.
They're good players in this game.
They're good. Does nobody spot its Dow Jones index? That's what I don't get. Why does nobody notice that little dig that they've had right from day one? Anyway, I digress.
What was the story, Ian, that you were talking about this week about what happened in the UK? You were talking about the counter UAS stuff.
Which one?
There's so much that goes on, but there's I mean, we've had long concerns with RID, and it's got more so since the consultation came along, CAP 2610, and the fact that was such a stitch up for the fact they had to bring up Gatwick again, it had to bring in the police stats up that we'd debunked back in 2018. So it was a real puzzle with that one. But then it was like the digging around from that has then brought up, a lot more is in the tenders that have been done. So already in the UK, there is a national counter-drone array that's covering, it covers basically all the sites they're concerned about in the UK. I'm told it's something 60 plus. And there's a desire then to make that, they say a national array. So it implies they just want to have the whole of the UK covered to see what's going on in the airspace. And again, the thing that puzzles me with a lot of this is we've got so much duplication going on because, on one hand, we've got the police going off and building an array. And then at the same time, we're asking the private sector to do this work. So I think in the end, we're going to pay for 2 systems that end up doing the same thing, which to me just seems bonkers. I'd be doing this in the private sector, really. And
the biggest thing is most of the equipment can only really pick up consumer off-the-shelf drones. It can't pick up bespoke anything. And I mean, you know,
I think this is the other problem is, well, there's all this money being spent, and we know where it's going to be dumped. It's going to be dumped on the drone industry. And then this was a part, and obviously with speaking to you about this, Stephen, that part of what you were saying was really what I was saying from in a different way, was the fact that I agree that a lot of this is bollocks. And if you were to build it, it wouldn't work. You'd be getting so many false positives. You'd be only detecting the people that were compliant and doing the right thing anyway. And when someone wants to do something daft, the chances are it's not going to detect them. But the trouble is, even if that's delivered, we'll have been dumped with the bill for it. And when you actually deliver a computer system that isn't doing what it's supposed to do, nobody ever admits it. We've seen that with the post office. So the system could be the most expensive piece of garbage counter drone detection system in the world, and it would still be sold as this is a brilliant system, it's perfect, and that would be the official line, and we'd be paying for it, and nobody be any the wiser, because it would be national security, so we couldn't question it anyway. So everyone will pat themselves on the back.
I just want to jump in. Part of my background's military for quite a long time, and national security is overused as an excuse to do things. I think coming to this debate this week, I was kind of asking the question is why are we going down this route anyway? We're supposed to have equitable access to airspace. So you've got existing airspace users that don't have a system like this, don't have any intention of getting a system like this. And suddenly this is being forced on the UAS community as a sort of foregone conclusion. And really, you've got the kind of situation where economically you're going to be able to fly, but from a terms and conditions perspective, you're going to be so tied up in red tape that you're actually going to be prevented from flying, so you won't have equitable access. You're going to have to comply with a whole bunch more rules and constraints that maybe shouldn't have even been put there in the first place. So my question was, what's the benefits of it, and is it even really worth having, or have we just been sold something that we've just been told it's going to be a useless IT system, but nobody will be prepared to say so after it's happened?
Now, I need to jump in now, and you've got something red in your hand. Can you show that red thing up please, Philip?
Just for
because Niles joined us. Niles joined us. That's his red card, and he didn't know the rules, that we can't have common sense. And on this stream, if you have common sense, you get red carded. We don't allow common sense because that's banned in the drone. It doesn't exist in the drone industry. It doesn't exist. Anyway, we can't disagree. No, it's not on. We can't disagree with you in any way. That's not on.
Yeah, so the reason I raise it is because one of the other apps I wear besides Neuron is the Shared Airspace Council in the UK. So I think this is going to be a really big facet to the whole situation, is that we're going to have to squeeze our way in amongst existing airspace users. And frankly, even though they're not saying it, they want to have us here. And they're going to use things like this and a whole raft of other excuses to say you're not ready, you're not compliant, you're not making my life easier. And we're just going to keep lobbying. And the main thing they're lobbying at the moment is EC to ensure that you guys can't come and play on a level playing field with the rest of us.
But when it comes to, and that's something I don't think has been discussed actually enough, is there's lobbying, and and it's something that should be talked about more. It should be given the respect a bit more as well, a bit more support. But what I was going to say, when it comes to the industry itself, because let's face it, there is not much of an industry at the moment. There's not much there. Okay, what we have is like a bare essentials at the moment. We're all struggling for work. We're all we're all struggling to make ends meet. Some of us are doing well, some of us are not doing well. But that doesn't constitute as an industry. And I think that what's planned for the UK. So this consultation in the document that has been put out, which I've read, and I'll be honest, I think it's bollocks. I think it's absolute bollocks. I cannot see network remote ID being put in nationwide. I just cannot see it happening. It makes no sense. But what I will say is, isn't this what the US wanted as well? They also wanted to have network remote ID
No.
as standard.
This is what Amazon wanted in the US.
Yeah,
and Amazon put a lot of effort into lobbying for that.
Yes, yes. So that's what I've understood.
The FAA didn't want this. This was
okay.
not.
So
okay,
I didn't know that's what they didn't want. All I've read is that we see that network remote ID is not what we wanted, but we're going to go with this. Okay. But is this kind of the same thing? And now, I mean, if you look at Amazon are not really in the game anymore, so it kind of doesn't really matter for them. I don't think they've lobbied hard enough.
The UK system is based on the suggestions for the American system, and if you read the standards, the network ID is still in the standards for the American system. It's just not mandatory, but all the rules about it are already in there. So we had hardware ready for the network ID before we had hardware ready for the non-network version, because that's where it was heading at the time. It was crazy and it was stupid. I mean, every single drone needs a SIM card and blah 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 blah. And like, yeah, I mean, you're doing drone swarms. I mean, you should be the biggest lobbyist against this, because I mean, in Australia, you want to do swarming drones, you've got to register each and every single drone in the swarm, which is absolutely ludicrous, unless of course you make swarm sub 250. But
we have to do that in the Middle East, but we don't have to do it in Europe. We have to do it in the Middle East. We have to do it. We didn't have to do it in Taiwan, actually. So, but yeah, it is totally ludicrous. But at least right now we are kind of exempt from remote ID because they haven't thought about it, and it wasn't until it was raised with EASA that we said to them, because what happened in Finland is that they came to us and said, now when you're flying in specific category, you must be broadcasting network remote ID. And I said, how the hell can we broadcast? All the drones have every document that we've issued to you is about the weight and everything. So if we add something else to it, it takes away what you've given us. So we have to do the SORA again, and they're kind of like, yeah.
Can I ask something?
You're exempt,
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
What didn't you agree with him about?
I don't agree with telling people that this is a bad thing. I also don't agree telling them that it's a good thing. I think that people should make up their own minds. I think that they have to understand it themselves. There's a big lack of understanding at the moment, and we're all talking about this, and I don't think that we should be telling them that this is a bad thing.
Someone has to tell people facts. I mean, that's the job of journalists. But clearly, as we all know, that doesn't happen anymore. There's no such thing as journalists anymore. But
I do think remote ID is here. It's going to stay. It doesn't matter what we do or what we say.
That's like saying VHS videos are here. Betamax shut down. The story's over, and there's never going to be anything else. I mean. Hello DVDs, hello Netflix. And the movie theater is still ticking along and still working because everyone loves going to the movies to watch a new movie. The game isn't over. We don't quit just because someone says, "Hey, Gatwick was real." I mean, if you've been following Ian down here, Gatwick has been debunked so thoroughly, and when the National Police Chiefs Council, that division, not that division, let's get correct. One division's great, one division's not. Next time I'm in the UK, later this year, National Police Chiefs Council, I'd love to meet up. I'm happy to call them out, as I believe that crooked cops would be my best way of discussing it, because...
Oh, so you won't be in the UK later in the year then?
Yes, so the good thing is they'll have to pick which passport I'm travelling on. So, yeah.
It's okay letting you access your good. We've all seen where you've been with your phones. They'll be fine. And I will say that Ian's work is not in fact it's nothing nowhere near as big as the post office scandal. But my word, it's in a lot of ways as scandalous. It's certainly put a huge anchor around the UK drone industry and has been used as a battering ram or hammer for most of the rest of the world as well. So when that one comes out, people need to be exposed and need to. So, mate.
Hence why New Zealand has every right to comment about legislation in the UK because have you got a bleep button?
No.
The beep 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 idiots in the UK have blown their Scatwick drone situation where they screwed up, totally screwed up. They created public hysteria and they screwed up. They have reported sightings of the police drone. We know for a fact it was the police drone now. There's no questions. There's no, but what ifs. And now they're resorting to, but what if someone had done that? Blah, 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 blah. You can't make policy on a hypothetical scenario, pretend it's real, and then just keep denying that you screwed up. At some stage, they need to be held accountable because the New Zealand regulations quote Gatwick. The Australian regulations quote Gatwick. The US regulations quote Gatwick. Therefore, anything that happens in the UK, it's our business. Because
isn't that then a good? I mean, just and sorry for being sensible here, but isn't this a good reason for remote ID to make sure that not only
because remote ID doesn't tell you that a drone's been there. It just tells you detected someone that bothered to turn their remote ID on. If you're going to harass an airport, let's not go into the details of how I would do it because, I'm much smarter than this and I'd be much more menacing. But thankfully, I'm one of those people that don't like terrorists. But there are ways to do things. And are you going to tell me that some Hamas guy is going to turn on remote ID and fly to Tel Aviv with their remote ID turned on? I mean, let's put remote ID on rockets being fired near Israel or it's just.
But actually, the bad guys use that. What I was actually meaning was the network remote ID. So if you had those guys using network remote ID, it would certainly be seen. They would certainly have everything logged in the sense. I'm not in favor of network remote ID.
Why would they use it?
Well, not in the UK because I mean this is over mobile networks, right? And mobile networks. I mean, I'm off down flying drones in Cornwall for the next couple of days. You don't get more than about 50% coverage down there.
Yeah,
so it doesn't work for a start. So and also I don't know about Amazon, but I thought the whole point of network remote ID was to give the telcos, the mobile companies, something to do in this game. I mean,
wasn't going to mention,
money.
Their efforts.
Well, actually, okay. So, I think for the network remote ID, this was how it was supposed to be, or how it's still actually here in Europe, they want it for U-Space. So that is what they want it for. However, U-Space is not going to happen for quite some time, so there's no reason for that whatsoever. We do have the ability to have network remote ID here, but it will only be used if you are flying in U-Space, which...
The crazy thing is there was a big push from the drone industry itself to use low-powered ADS-B on anonymous serial numbers. It's not that we're all anti-drone ID. We like the idea of all drones and all airspace to be able to communicate with each other and not crash into each other. We love that as an idea. I mean, when it comes to drones interacting with manned aircraft, I mean, we've got big plans for that later in the year. I've got 2 737 windscreens on their way to the UK at the moment, and we're actively trying to work out what is safe, what isn't safe, and give real data to people to to actually make better decisions, because at the moment everything's being driven by fear and bull crap, and that was what Bruce was said, and they are shutting down the remote control side of things. I mean, Bruce personally knows he's been kicked out of the model flying NZ, and he's been stopped from flying where he actually has flown for years, giving really cool videos, and he's done so much for the RC industry, and he's being shut down on drone hysteria, basically. Like in America, you're not allowed to fly without remote ID unless you're at a registered airfield, but most of the airfields didn't end up getting registered. Australia's discussing remote ID at the moment, and guess what? They're quoting Gatwick as one of the reasons. Like this is something we can still be fighting. Europe, unfortunately, is a massive dictatorship. Let's be blunt. It's just what it is. For economic reasons, it makes sense that people join the EU and blah, blah, blah. But you're signing up to a dictatorship in many ways. I get it. So it's very hard to actually fight a
do you know what happened here in Finland? Right? Okay, so and of course this counts for the whole of Europe. Now we knew that remote ID was coming in because we understood the documents that we've seen for months and months and months. But I had contacted the authorities here to say, when are you going to announce that we're having remote ID? Because it's now, because I think at that point it was October, so this was 4 months ago, three months ago, and I asked the authorities, you haven't given any information to the public yet. How did you plan to tell them that we're having remote ID? and the response was, we'll do it later. It's okay. And literally 3 weeks before the 1st of January, 3 weeks before, they made an announcement to the public. And 2 days before that, we all got an email, because those that have the operational authorizations, we were told 2 days beforehand, let's say officially. And I was thinking that, obviously in the US it was 3 years or 4 years they've been talking about this, and there's been the hysteria, blah blah blah. Here it's just, there you are. that was it. I mean, there was nothing at all. And now everyone's panicking, because every day you're seeing people talking, going, "Oh, it's remote ID. What should I do?" And there's no information. So here it's just been going live, and that's it.
I wanted to put
on a justification of putting it into use space, which, I mean, some of my background is air traffic as well, is just a way of structuring airspace. We're conflating different issues here. Just because you've got different structures of airspace doesn't mean you need some technological solution to identify what all the aircraft flying in it are. They're different objectives. So, and the very fact that people didn't have a discussion, doesn't that sort of tell you that there wasn't a good discussion to be had? So that's why you've ended up with something you probably don't need. I mean, I'm open on this issue, but I can see which way the cards are falling at the moment, and it's not falling in line with something that doesn't seem to have a good rationale behind it. And I don't really know who the backer is. I don't know who's making this case and how they're making it, because I haven't seen that anywhere in several years of looking at the problem. So I'm skeptical.
And I just wanted to put this fantastic little snippet, and I didn't ask Ian's permission to put up, from a recent FOIA, so he may be very angry with me. But this is a corker. Because this is Ian asking the CIA. You tell the story, Ian, and then I'll get rid of it.
I mean, back in 2021, I was still obviously trying to get the information out about what was going on with Gatwick, what evidence everyone had, because obviously you put the narrative out there. So it's like, well, come on, then let's prove it. Let's see what you've got. So I'd asked the DFT first, and I said, okay, if there was a drone, then surely you've got a description. You must have, and even description doesn't have to be. It looks like this. It's this size. It's red. It's black. It's white. It can, it's as much as, was it fast? Was it slow? All these kind of behaviors, and there was literally nothing at all that the DFT had that described it. So they said. Slightly concerning now that we know they did have a bit of video. We didn't mention that at the time, but if we'll skip on, they said no, we haven't got anything. So I said to the CAA, well, have you got anything then? And it took a bit of to-ing and throwing, but eventually they said, no, they came clean and said, we haven't got anything. We haven't got a description. We haven't got any video. We haven't got any photos. Essentially, and no one, we've spoken to the team and no one's got any information about it that would, substantiate there being a drone there. So because it was used, obviously, as we know now in December in the cap against us, I thought, well, if you didn't have any information in 2021, surely if you're going to bring it up again, you must have come into some information in the time being. And so I've asked the question and said, have you come in, have you acquired any more information from the DFT, from the police and so on? And they said, no, we haven't. So really, they've admitted that they never had any information back then. They've had no additional information since, but they still feel that it's a narrative that they can just pull out of a hat whenever they want to. And that's where there's a problem. I did ask as a part 2 in that if there was anyone I could contact to send them the Gatwick stuff. So they've just given me a generic email, so I will give it a go. But last time I did that with something, I didn't even get a reply, so they might not even want to know. But I'll send them a message and see if anyone's in the least bit interested in at least storing some aside and thinking, let's have a look at it objectively.
The CA are famous for their let's say generic emails, and you never get someone's name. It's just a reply, so you can never pin someone down. It's What was I going to say?
Gary, there's one thing I do need to say.
Go on, mate.
We did say he wasn't coming on the show unless I apologised.
I got that one.
Are you ready? I'm sorry for not saying you were completely wrong and instead insinuating you had some grievance against New Zealand and you were totally racist against New Zealanders. As a part Australian and part New Zealander, I understand what it's like to be called racist. I've had many New Zealanders call me racist when I call them sheep rooters. But then they realise I'm a New Zealander and they know I'm allowed to say that because I'm a New Zealander. And so I understand that. And it is called sarcasm. Yes, I was having a dig at you, but I figured that being racist against a New Zealander, Bruce especially, was pretty obvious sarcasm. But okay, moving on.
Okay.
If you would like to still sue me, join the queue. Because I think I mentioned Amazon, DJI. Who else did I mention?
I would much rather.
Would you like that?
I would much rather a few beers in Taiwan. To be honest with you, Phil, I would much rather a few beers in Taiwan. But it's cool.
Next time you're here. All good.
What was I going to say? What do you think? Okay, so just to ask Phil or even Bruce, actually, what do you think are the possibilities of network remote ID becoming a national thing in the UK if it goes through?
Well, that's what they're planning, isn't it? I mean, it's very obvious. I think they'll push hard to do it. They've got lots of technology companies who want to be in on this. There's a great deal of revenue to be generated in forms of automated fines and whatever, as I mentioned in my video. They're following the footsteps of the USA, who see this as the way forward to eVTOL, to drone delivery, to total management of the airspace, and this crazy notion of integrating drones into the national airspace, when, as we know, the safest way to deal with drones is to segregate them from the national airspace by way of vertical stratification or whatever. But integration is a big word, and I like to use big words because it confuses voters, and I think they must know what they're talking about. I've used a word with more than one syllable. That's what they're basically planning to do.
To be fair, we should add, Bruce, really, there isn't the evidence there. It's about integrating into the airspace. There are those general arguments and have been in the past, but what we've seen of recent is specifically it's the Home Office. You can see there on LinkedIn and that you can see the relationships. It's the MPCC, it's the Home Office. It's there on the emails, and they are pushing it. So it's actually being done to. I mean, the Home Office has spent, to my count, already 14 million on what we've already got rolled out. And this, when he's spending huge sums, that's going to have to be justified. And it's a lot easier if you're going to say, well, we want to keep on building our system and making it bigger. But even better, we don't have to pay for it. We'll make the drone industry pay for it themselves, and then you're on to a winner. And that's really what's going on here. So I think it is more security. It is more the Home Office. Yeah. The words like Ukraine will be being used, and that's the justification. But it's, as you know, Bruce, and I'll let you continue on in a minute, you know the argument's wrong, because the argument, especially with the Ukraine, it's munitions, it's warfare. You can't do that in the UK. You can't just go down to the shop, pick up a grenade, bang it on a drone. And if you could, that would be your root cause problem, not the drone. But anyway, go on, continue.
Yeah. The other thing is, if they think that remote ID is a solution to a problem, they're incredibly naive. It's like saying, we're going to make all cars have registration plates so there'll be no more bank robberies because bank robbers will have to walk from the scene. It doesn't work that way. I mean, the naivety of these people, they're either treating us like idiots or they're idiots. It's got to be one of the two, because no sane mind would accept the fact that voluntarily fitting this remote ID thing to your drone to narc on you if you're doing bad things is going to protect people. It's just utter rubbish. And the fact that they then try and justify it by saying, well, get wick. It's just a complete sea of lies and deceptions, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And this has to be brought to the public's attention. They're being taken for fools, and they're using the hysteria regarding drones and all the Karens and all the dangers that drones represent. There's no risk assessment to justify any of the regulations in place. And I know that they're not worried about safety, because the day they prove that it's about safety is the day they start amending manned aviation regulations to take into account the increased risks associated with sub 500-foot operations. But they're not doing that at all. So they don't care about the safety. It's not a safety issue.
Well, I was going to chip in with my Ukraine comment and segregation of airspace. At the moment, Ukraine's demonstrating that drones at low level and jets and helicopters at low level work quite well, because they're not hitting each other continually unless it's deliberate. And that must be the highest concentration of low-level drone, fast jet and helicopter traffic in the world in history ever.
If only the Ukrainians could recruit some Royal Canadian Mounted Police with their drones, they could bring down all those helicopters and jets the Russians are using.
That's it. But no, with this airspace experience. So but surely you now should be coming and saying, no. The narrative from the ATNS world is, get them gone, get them out of here. We don't want anything to do with them. Why were you talking so favourably of low-level integration earlier? I don't quite understand. So perhaps you can help me understand your place in the space there.
Well, totally, because no matter which way you look at it, there's going to be a lot more aircraft pretty soon, and the majority are going to be drones. So we talk about 10x. That's come out from the PwC report. Actually, Think consultancy in the UK come up with a much bigger number. The airspace is going to get very, very busy, and air traffic controllers don't want anything to do with this problem. You know, they're busy, they're professionals, they do a great job. They manually handle aircraft pretty much. I mean, it's over voice radios and it's over radar in the few little places we've got them, and it's a lot of procedural work, but they are not in the business of taking over drones. So something else has to do it. And that's part of where we're coming from a Neuron perspective. We're very much in the business of trying to separate safely manned and unmanned aircraft. And from a sort of stakeholder perspective, because there's no point putting a technology in place or even a procedure, which is how I regard use space, and not manage the people in the process, because you will get no change. And like I mentioned earlier, these guys do not want to integrate with the other airspace because it means an infringement of their privileges. Since the Second World War, a lot of military aircraft were converted into leisure aircraft, and these guys have had a fantastic opportunity to fly around and not really follow flight plans, and for not bother to read NOTAMs, and to have an amazing time, go off, do loop-the-loops, decide to go down to Brighton for lunch and change their mind and go to Lyd instead, and it doesn't affect anyone. And then suddenly the sky is going to be full of a lot of aircraft they can't see. And the issue is not that the drones can't keep out of the way, it's that the GA can't see the other aircraft. And you can't keep segregating. We've modeled it, even for the medical use cases in the UK. And there's a few people trying to diss them and say you don't need them. There's absolutely a case for medical deliveries. Like I say, down in Cornwall, where I'll be over the next few days, getting bloods on and off the Isle of Scillies. You need a drone to do it effectively, and in most weathers and quickly, and many other samples. And you model that up, and it becomes thousands of just medical use case flights around the UK. You can't segregate your way to thousands of pieces of airspace that unmanned aircraft can use. The GA community is complaining like Billio now about having around about 90 or 100 TDAs in the UK in any particular year. They want that number to come down dramatically, and it probably should, but it'll only happen by taking them into shared airspace, I firmly believe, which is TRAs, where eventually they're going to have to transpond. The drones are going to have to be digitally visible, and you won't see them with your eyes because you can't. You'll see them on a screen on a device, ground control station, and the drones will keep well clear of the manned aircraft. That to me is the only solution. But just Phil, before you jump in, and in all of that great big blurb, I don't see a role for a remote ID once.
Yeah.
So I'm ignoring the color of this drone. We'll save that for when we stop arguing. I'm more focusing on this little wire here. We have now given away something close to nearly 200,000 ADS-B receivers for free. Now, people will say, but you sell them as part of your product. Our normal Cube, not this one, was selling at $250. It's nearly $350 now, thanks to chip shortages, whatever. But the ADS-B in unit that's on it sells by itself for about $250. So either we're giving the autopilot away for free or we're giving the ADS-B away for free. But either way, the point is ArduPilot has had auto avoid for ADS-B for years now. Like, I think we're talking 7 years.
2016 it was around. It's been a long time.
2016, so eight years. This 8 years this year. Now, what that allows you to do, you've got a Cube or whatever powered drone running ArduPilot, which the National Health Services drones that are doing those deliveries have Cubes in them with ADS-B. When a full-size aircraft flies along with its ADS-B out turned on, which, different topic, if they're on a collision course, the NHS aircraft can just avoid. And it does that by going on a 90-degree vector to where the threat is, which is the easiest and most safe way of avoiding the collision. Now, that's great, but the problem is the military want to fly around without their transponders on. The GA aircraft don't want to fly with transponders because it invades their privacy while they want us to have remote ID. And like, you've got hot air balloons, you've got paragliders, you've got hang gliders, you've got all sorts of people without transponders flying around complaining that drones are going to kill them. You've got helicopters flying around with acrylic windshields that can't even protect themselves from a pigeon, complaining that a drone's going to take them out of the sky. Protect yourself from pigeons, people. There's a level of responsibility that GA need to take. I'm a GA pilot. I'm a GA aircraft engineer. That's my background, and I've worked on these aircraft. I've broken windscreens out of Cessnas, and that's so easy to break. It's a bit of fun. But put a polycarbonate windshield in, guys, and put some effort into actually protecting the pilot. There is this mentality in GA that it is up to the drones to keep them safe. Well, no, it's up to them to keep themselves safe in a modern airspace that is dangerous. So turn your ADS-B on and let us avoid you.
I just want to defend the glider guys and the balloon guys. I flew with ADS-B and FLARM in balloons and gliders, and FLARM especially. FLARM, the gliding world, and that's in paragliders and all sorts of things. And they've actually made themselves a problem because when there's a really good thermal now, they can all see it, and they all, is your ADS-B alarm? They all flock to it. But yeah, but having done that, you're right. Electronic conspicuity is a thing. And I think what we also need to do, we're being honest about this with a future-looking airspace, we have to admit that ADS-B is crap. we should stop moving forward. We should go for a secure, modern digital thing that's going to work in 50 years' time. ADSB's from 1990. That's when the ADSB is rubbish. Let's get rid of it. Anyway,
I'd say yes and no, because with technology systems, you've got to start somewhere, right? And ADSB is not great, and we know it's going to get saturated, but it doesn't mean we're wedded to it and we have to keep using it forever. It's the CIA's preferred means of transponding. They've been pretty clear on that. They're giving clear guidance. I think it will get replaced fairly quickly, 5-10 years, something like that. But it gets us going. We can add already FLARM very easily. And then in the future, we'll add on whatever's got more capacity, more bandwidth, easier to split the signal, geofence, whatever you need to do to make the system really scalable, because it's not going to scale up overnight. I think that's the way to go, rather than say we need a silver bullet that won't be available for many years.
True, yeah, true. No, you're very right. I was ranting.
Sorry, I was being sensitive.
You've got too many companies around the world. You've got too many countries around the world all pushing their own little wheelbarrows on this, whereas ADSB exists. Secure ADSB is basically where we need to be heading, but it needs to be driven by ICOA or someone like that, that actually want to secure aviation and consider us part of aviation. And yes, you should have to register all your pigeons.
And also remember that remote ID isn't electronic conspicuity, but drones will have to have electronic conspicuity. So remote ID isn't even a temporary interim measure, because all this remote ID stuff will get thrown out when electronic conspicuity comes in. So we've got a whole community, a whole industry burdened with this extra cost that is transient at least, and solves no problems.
So Bruce, we've sort of fixed that a little bit. So Siddharth, who works for, is one of the owners of QPilot, has just released a new firmware for our GPSs and our remote ID units to actually turn them into telemetry units, so that they can actually be used for something outside of remote ID. Now, they still serve the purpose of doing remote ID, but you can actually use them as telemetry, and that will lead us towards using them to do some of the swarming operations and things like that as well, where we can actually use that data to do cool stuff. So there is some positives there. The biggest thing I want changed is the need to use a fixed ID. I want a random number ID. That would be a great start.
The other thing too,
we haven't.
I think
we haven't mentioned. Sorry, Noel. We haven't mentioned the rebroadcasting of the operator's location at all either. That's pretty huge. Anyway, I'll stop. Sorry, Noel. After you.
Yeah. So Neil, actually, but I think the point I was going to make is go back to the fundamental principles. The situation you've got, and it's going to get worse, is existing airspace users kind of see it as a privilege that they're going to grant for drones to fly alongside them. And that's wrong in principle. It's a wrong premise to begin with. So sort of laying down a whole lot of conditions. This has to be interoperable internationally. I need to have an alert. What are you going to do with the alert? What happens if you don't do it properly? You cause a crash. Are you going to allow yourself to be liable for that? All of these conditions that are being put down. And in fact, just work on the premise that everybody starts from the same starting point. So if you haven't got it at the moment as an airspace user, don't demand that somebody else has it through whatever backdoor lobbying you've done. And I know you do loads and loads of it because you've got loads of senior influential people in your cohorts. Stop the lobbying, do the right thing, and actually have everybody come in on an equitable basis. Then you're being fair. Then the industry can grow. And also, just the point made earlier about commercial, this isn't a commercial market at the moment. So long as you've got the BV loss, real hobbling of the industry, this is a pre-commercial market. Take that constraint off, allow people to fly the full range of their aircraft, and then you've got a commercial market, and it can reach its market potential, whatever that's going to be. At the moment, we're not even there. And all of these arguments, I totally agree, there's a lot of BS going around just to kind of keep things the way they are, because that's in a lot of people's interests.
I mean, one second. I gripe a lot on Twitter for about this reason, just for the fact that everyone's talking already about putting around process and procedure, and it's always tied to a cost. It's always, before any of this is being proven, like the eVTOLs, everyone's sort of set, they've already decided 5 or 10 years, this is where we're going to be. And this is going to succeed, and that's going to succeed. And none of it's proven. And the thing that concerns me especially is when the eVTOLs, and I always see vertiports and there's the computer images and that, and it's always one of the Chinese products there. Everyone's just like, give me what's there now, even not, is that the right thing anyway? Shouldn't we be moving on a bit? And I noticed there was a talk online for some like key players, there's like Rolls-Royce and whatever, that are in bits of the eVTOL space. And even they were saying, you know, really, we ought to be testing these things from heliports at first. Make sure that the economics work. Make sure the batteries and everything around it. Just test a bit of this first. See what works, see what doesn't work, and then move on. And it just seems everyone's set on, this is how it's going to be, and we're going to do this. I just wish we'd take a little step forward first and say, let's just prove some of this.
I said the same thing to you, Ian, a few days ago. I said that they should be using existing airfields just now. They should be using like some of the, you know, and actually, you know, give them some money for, you know, as well, which would actually help them. But I see a lot of money being spent at the moment, especially EU money, and there's we've had CISA now for the past 5-6 years. It's been going on. I've been involved in that. I think I actually flew the very first network remote ID flight on a drone. I think I was the first person to do that. But that is another story. But you know, they've spent so much money in making sure that this is where they want to be. This is where they want to go, with all the eVTOLs and the air taxis and the U space and all the rest of it, and make sure that we have drone deliveries. And I feel that they're not really actually concentrating on the business side, even though there's no business, but they want to put these U space airspaces in place, and without even having the business in there. And that's a massive risk. That's a massive risk for us, because we need to have that airspace. I don't want to be flying network remote ID. I don't want to be flying network remote ID. You know, I don't want to be flying bigger drones at the moment, because if I have to go through the process, it takes time, it takes money. We don't have the business for that, so therefore, it doesn't make any sense. So I mean, I think that there's a big risk with money that has already been spent with, let's say, taxpayers' money, and they feel that they have to now put that through. And whether it's EASA who are behind that or not, I really say. I know that there are people that are behind that, but I don't agree with it, and I think that could be a problem. And that's where, as you were saying, Ian, about money and where's it going, who's going to pay for it. If they put that in place, what then? So
something up when you're talking about regulators putting stuff in place. Talking about the EU regulations and C3 and all of that sort of stuff. It costs about $147,000 to $150,000 for a UAV manufacturer to register a drone. Now, that means basically all the small European manufacturers who sell, drones at maybe $1,000 margin or something like that, and they're custom made, they're excellent quality, they serve the mission perfectly, blah, blah, blah. They can't afford to get their stuff certified, so they're all going broke. DJI has unlimited funds. Basically, we know they're a government-funded organisation. They're the one pushing for some of these certifications. They're on these boards. They're the ones actually pushing this stuff. And we're getting into a position where you talk about the business case. Oh, there's a business case, all right. And there's a business case for particular countries to dominate this industry. At the same time, in Australia, we've got an Australian government initiative at the moment to make a DJI killer drone at a price of about $3,000 US. It's going to be better than a Mavic Pro, which costs a lot more than $3,000. So it's going to be cheaper too. And somehow Australian companies are going to do this, but they're not allowed to use any Chinese chips in this. which basically means they can't do it. So you want to encourage this Western industry to thrive, to be able to compete with the Chinese. And I mean, I'm not a fan of banning DJI. I think we should just get all governments to piss off out of the whole thing altogether. Don't ban DJI. We don't need to. But stop putting all these stupid regulations on all drone companies and let drone companies grow up. They will. You know, one day the next thing will be there and DJI will just be VHS. It's going to happen. DJI will be a has-been company one day, but not if Western governments keep insisting on adding red tape. In America, this whole green UAS bullcrap, like blue UAS. Now, 6 out of the 11 approved drones have our autopilot in it, so I should be go blue, buy our stuff. No, it's bullshit. Sorry, bleep. Retrospective bleep. It's Taurus excretus. We don't need to prove something is not Chinese. We just need to find people if they lie. Like if you import something in and then say it's made in USA and it doesn't meet the made in USA requirements, pull them up. We got pulled up by DJI because one of our sample units of one of our customers' products with our product inside had made in USA written on it. It was a sample, and it was done before the law changed from 51% to 99 point whatever percent it is now of blah, blah, blah. So we had to change everything to manufactured in to keep up with the law. Cool. We tell people what's what. You know, all of our products are made in Taiwan without Chinese chips whatsoever, blah, 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 except for one of our products, which we make in China, which is full of Chinese chips, surprisingly. But we're honest with that. We don't need to be certified that we're being honest. Consumers can open it up and figure out what our chips are and where they're made. It's pretty easy to do these days. Surely a defense contractor who's buying our stuff can figure out where our stuff's made. It's not that hard. We don't need this red tape. They're throwing it on us, and DJI is just sitting there going, let's wait till they
to give a little bit more, sorry, Philip, but to give a bit more context to the green thing for people that don't know, that's also $100,000. I believe you can tell me, you know more than me, $100,000 per unit to get it ticked off for people from, and let's remember, this is from people from just like an organization, like it's a trade organization. It's not a. Yeah.
It's not a government.
Who anointed them? Who said they could do that? I bewilders me. It absolutely bewilders me. So the green and blue system, I firmly believe, will kill the US drone industry. It will kill it. You can't climb out from under that as a small manufacturer. And of course, the thing is, Skydio and the others haven't got big enough yet either. They're not at a point where they're home free. They've got to rely on those orders. If they don't come in, they're toast as well.
Someone was doing the maths the other day. What do they need? 25,000 drone sales at whatever the price was. That's actually easy in today's day and age. I know what we sell. I don't think that's a crazy number for them to sell. That's 1 or 2 orders to, border security.
But we know, but that's per annum, isn't it? And we know that DJI are doing just under 20,000 a day. So
but that's not going to Ukraine, though. That's not going to Ukraine.
But I do think that they're doing enough that they will be able to survive and keep going. I do expect them to succeed. I'm disappointed that they've pulled out of the consumer side of things because the consumer drone was heading in the right direction. It was cool, but I know that
Josh. That's exactly it. Sorry.
I know that the Finnish military here, they had a tender out for buying drones, and to cut a long story short, they are using Chinese drones, so they're not afraid to use Chinese drones. All the drones they have are actually Chinese, but they're not at the DJI because they need to actually get into them. So they have to be open source, basically, So, but the Finnish military are very happy to use Chinese drones, and even with how sensitive things are at the moment here, obviously, But yeah, they're not bothered.
Considering the Finnish drone industry is one of the earlier entrants into the drone market, I mean, Jani is over in Finland.
I know Jani. Yeah, I know Jani.
He was, the original manufacturer of the APMs and oil pan and all of that sort of stuff for DIY drones and early 3DR days. Finland's nuts to not be actually engaging with him properly and really kicking off a proper Finnish drone industry. That's absolutely nuts. However, there are other organisations in Finland that unfortunately I'm on very strict NDAs that are using a lot of non-Chinese drones that are actually manufactured in Finland. There are some really cool Finnish drones.
Oh, yeah, I know those ones as well.
But unfortunately, it is so easy to just buy a Mavic or buy a Inspire or whatever, an M600 or whatever. It is so easy to just buy them and fly. I understand using some of them, but I think the mass adoption is wrong from the level of just we need to have an industry elsewhere, and I think governments are the ones that can actually influence that. It should be mandated, but it just should be a little bit of common sense that it should happen, as opposed to mandated. But they get this budget and they get this much for it with DJI and this much for it elsewhere. I understand, but yeah.
So you know Jani well, do you?
Very well. Yes.
Oh, okay. I'll mention you when I see him next.
Oh, that'll stop the conversation dead. Everyone stops when we mention his name.
I didn't say we were tonight, but we know each other. We go way back. We've had our pros and cons, and we've had our disagreements and agreements, and but he is a vital part of the drone industry that we're actually in now. And without Jani, the DIY drone story wouldn't be what it is, and even our product probably wouldn't exist without Jani. So, yeah.
Cool.
I know there was something else I wanted. I am unmuted. Let's put it up. Where is it? This one. We've got to at least talk about this, because this, as fights go, this hasn't gone very well. So let's move on. Did we all see the yet more guidance on this same subject? The lobbyists are working hard in the US. Does anyone have any thoughts on this one?
I sit on both of this fence.
You sit on both fences?
Yeah, I love sitting on fences. It's good. You get a better view. The problem with the whole Chinese manufactured UAS side of things is the initial presidential order by Mr. Trump was an absolute knee-jerk reaction and has done immeasurable damage to the drone industry. And before we start saying Trump bad, Biden good, Biden came in and it was about the only presidential order he did not overturn, and he cemented it into regulation. So both of them pricks to the drone industry. No matter which side of politics you're on, both of those guys screwed the American drone industry by banning Chinese drones, which is ironic. But what they did was they introduced all this blue and all of these justifications for all this other stuff and continued it. And that, unfortunately, has just put a noose around the American drone industry's neck. Now, I'm not going to lie, our sales have been on a route, and the ban has definitely helped QPilot. But I don't want to make sales because of a ban. So I don't support it. I think it's stupid, even though we do profit from that ban, and I'll admit that. But it's not the right way to profit. The right way to profit is to compete, build better products and compete. And however, on the cybersecurity side of things, Kevin Finister has proven that this stuff is real. The issues are real. They are not pretend. They're not made up. They're not hypothetical. However, a fire department using a Mavic Pro to rescue people from a burning building is not a threat to national security. I understand the military not wanting to use DJI. I get it. DJI have been bad in that area. But I have no agreement or understanding as to why fire departments, police departments, whatever, can't do basic tasks with that drone because it's the best they can get at the time. If an American drone company starts building something better like Skydio or whoever, Inspired Flight, there's plenty of other good ones out there. If any of them make stuff that's better and they manage to compete, which they do and did before the ban, they all existed before the ban, then cool. But putting a ban in place, calling it national security, and then stopping firemen from using the equipment that they have on hand to rescue people is dumb. So I think both sides are stupid.
I'm just going to say at this point, I brought some props in case it kicked off, which obviously it hasn't. But just because you're talking so much common sense, Philip, I'm going to say this is how entertained I am, and I'm going to go. Please continue.
Yeah, I was going to bring. I mean, for those that weren't here earlier, I had this ready to go, and I was been looking for my popcorn as well. But yeah, it's not been required. Oh, hang on.
Oh no. Oh, my computer was. Oh, we've got
the mine is bigger than yours, Bruce.
Yes, that's what your wife told me.
Indeed. Look, this has gone too well. I mean, that's terrible. What other nonsense have we seen before we go? Because we're going for an hour and 21. Before we go, what other nonsense?
Focus on Bruce for a second.
Yep. No.
I didn't have a point. I just wanted everyone to focus on Bruce for a second.
Oh, hang on. I think I can.
Holding up with his grenade on the bottom. I think it's worth pointing out that little toy drones need to be in their own little category, and this is where I think you might have missed where this is coming from in his stuff. Someone flying a little FPV drone down at the park is not carrying a massive explosive. Physics don't work. It's yes, you can carry a grenade underneath a Mavic if you're so inclined. Where did you buy that grenade in the UK? Where did you buy that in Australia? Where did you buy that in New Zealand? Like, you can't buy stuff like that. Now, in America,
the dark web.
In America, you can buy some crazy stuff, but that's its own set of issues, and I'll let the Americans fight out their own regulations on weaponry. Let's stay out of that one. But in the rest of the world, it's actually really hard to get that sort of stuff, unless you're in a war zone, in which case we're not talking about recreational drones. We're talking about weapon systems. We don't sell weapon systems. We don't get involved in weapon systems. We try and stay as far away from them as we can. But, that's not who we're talking about. And if suddenly the UK is overrun by FPV flyers with grenades on them, it's because, I don't know, we didn't let Ukraine into NATO or something, and that's got out of hand, and somehow Russia found more people. That's not a scenario we're in at the moment.
It's also that people aren't using 250-gram foam models of Piper Cubs to deliver ordnance. This whole distinction between the drone and the model aircraft community, regulators have lumped them together because it suits them, because they're all users of that airspace. And again, it shows no thought, no logic, no reasoning has gone into those regulations, because they are totally different risk profiles, totally different user bases, totally different skill levels required.
Bruce, there is one technical issue, and that's the fact that as far as a counter-drone system's concerned, it can't too easily differentiate between, you put you on your RC transmitter, whether that's flying a model aircraft or it's flying a drone, it's still going to get picked up the same. So there are genuine practical.
How many transmitters are not the things that are getting picked up? It's the video transmitters and things. If you're sitting in a field 3 miles from an airport and you're flying line of sight, or say 6 miles from an airport, you're flying line of sight, you're probably not even going to get picked up because you disappear into the ground cloud of the Wi-Fi and all the other stuff. It's when you're elevated and you've got a 5.8 gigahertz video transmitter, that's when you can get picked up. So people flying line of sight, traditional old model aircraft, they shouldn't be in this argument. They've been doing it for decades without any issues. The regulators acknowledge that they're no risk, they're no problem. So why are you hauling them into this regulatory framework designed to address a totally different issue?
I think the trouble is, though, I think that argument will never work because what you're arguing for is divide and conquer. It's
two different communities.
No, it's not divide and conquer. It's about. It's not. This is where your intended location.
The point, and then he can jump in.
Where's the fun in that?
I've been on the.
I thought I was going to be fighting with you.
And the fight breaks out.
Yeah, I've been on the BMFA group, and there's people that are like.
I didn't expect it to go this way, but war's war.
Yeah, it's. They want to say it's all the drone users' problem. Let's throw them under the bus.
No.
It's not good by people throwing each other under the bus. No good come of it.
I don't think Bruce is trying to support Model Aviation NZ because they won't support him, even though he is sticking up for their industry and they are throwing him under a bus. So I think trying to say that he's trying to divide and conquer is sort of wrong. He's actually trying to unite.
No, but what I'm getting at is when you keep saying to separate them, that's not going to happen because all you have to do is get a model aircraft, put a flight controller on it, and it's a drone. So whether we like it or not.
Well, that's right. Then it becomes a drone.
Even with a flight controller on it, it's still a toy. And there's a difference between flying a toy at the park. Some of the used to fly our model aeroplanes when we first started doing this stuff was crazy, and we'd never do it now. But we used to do some crazy stuff. Beyond visual line of sight in Australia used to be defined vertically as well. The 400-foot limit was only in controlled airspace. People didn't actually realize that because the advice was different. But outside of controlled airspace, there was no 400-foot limit. So we were flying on Skywalker 1900s, visual line of sight. Well, I could still see the dot. I could tell which way it was going. We were very high.
Just to elaborate where I'm coming from, it's this issue of so neither drones or model aircraft should be having the crap. Okay, that simple as we've gotten to the point where things just keep getting sillier. The point is, it's always over the narrative, so it's always. Obviously Gatwick, but airports in general, it's the air proxies. So every time there's an air prox, there'll be someone on a BMFA group. Well, look, it's drone pilots again, and it's like no, they're not even doing it. That data is dodgy. It's a narrative. There is so much hysteria that's made out there from what we know is dodgy data, and it's like it's not that the drones are a problem. They're not committing all these crimes. That 18,000 that we've discussed is about 600, most of which are trivial. The CPS have told me in 2022 there was zero prosecution. I'm waiting for
Ryan Beale. Hey,
and I think 2023 is more, but I still think it'll be single figures. So that's the level of crime we're talking about. So we shouldn't even be saying bad drone pilots because there isn't a criminal justice issue there. It's being blown up into one for people that
don't say blown up.
The want, it's this fear cells that's going on, and instead of pointing fingers at each other, we just need to point fingers at the data and start picking the data apart collectively, and then we'll be moving in the right direction to get things done.
You're risking a red card, and I will say this as an aside: hands up, anybody that's found dodgy chips in blue UAS gear. Those that know. But earlier, no, not you. Your hand doesn't count. But there's someone here that knows. Earlier, my comment about ADSB not being the suitable standard. Now I'm going to be my best world. We're missing an opportunity. This them and us. All the them and us is. and dividing is causing a problem. We're airspace users in whichever form it is, and people inherently want to be safe. They don't want to do these things. And it strikes me that the regulations are also stopping youngsters getting into the model side, and we're losing that safety training of being in a windy field with a bunch of old duffers flying model airplanes. We're losing that experience coming up into the entire aviation industry, maybe becoming air traffic controllers, aircraft engineers, or even, heaven forbid, pilots. This is all forcing, in my utopian world, that's the problem we're getting. It's causing problems in the bigger aviation ecosystem that are going to come home to roost, I reckon, in about 10 years' time, probably. But it's being killed now. Anyway, rant ends. We're missing training and safety information and sending out.
I've got the solution to everything. I just worked it out. Everyone who flies a drone should have to attend a 2-year RADA course. Then there'd be no bad actors.
I would say, while Niall's here, given he's got his own system, shall we give him a little talk on that since he's here? It seems a little unfair if he's appeared on here, doesn't have much chance to talk about his solution.
Well, I didn't come here to talk about Neuron, just so you kind of knew who I was and where I came from. My interest is very much on shared airspace. I think integrations, actually to Bruce's point and what Gary was saying, there's a lot of prosperity to be had here, potentially. It could be quite a big industry, could be a lot of jobs, could be a lot of growth. And ultimately, I think if we look far enough back in the future, we'll say, why don't we just all collaborate a little bit and make it happen rather than fighting with each other? But at the moment, we're kind of not there. But so Neuron, I think James, my co-founder, Growski, who was there at the beginning as well. We came together to solve the BV loss problem. We're all ex-aviators of one form or another, air traffic, a pilot, a drone collision avoidance guy. And we're kind of pretty lucky because we've ridden the wave of the Future Flight Challenge in the UK. So we got a load of grant funding. We've got reasonable opportunities to trial. We've also been there for the policy concept and the introduction of the TRAs. And so Blueprint will culminate in June with a showcase. You're all very welcome, 25th of June at Cranfield, or to link in online. And we will share open source all our collateral on BV loss flights based on the ground-based sensor system, which is a self-financing economic system where people have sensors on their roof for ADS-B. And we get a great pickup. So in the Cranfield area, we use social media, Facebook, and we had in a fortnight about 80 people who wanted to have a sensor on the roof. And we're now deploying that in Cornwall in a bunch of use cases there. We've been overseas already, and we've got quite a pipeline now. We're just hitting double figures of drone zones in the UK that want to use this. There's an awful lot of very clever stuff in the back end. That's why we've taken 4 or 5 years to get here. We've developed a very sophisticated peer-to-peer way of operating. So there's no central server. So it's super cheap. It's really fast. You're talking tens or hundreds of milliseconds to pass data. It's secure and it's safe. The regulator likes it and is encouraging us to push forwards. So, watch the space. I think Neuron's got a good solution. There's a few others out there. I won't say anything about them in this forum. But I think if everything goes well, and touch wood, it's all going to kind of happen in the next 6 months or so. We'll be showing how we can do BV loss, and we can actually get out of this hobbling that the industry's been in for such a long time now.
It's quite interesting that we have BV loss here. You can go out to 15 kilometers, so that's 30 kilometers across, and the market's not gone huge. And we've got it out to 15 Ks each way, and it hasn't caused, I'm going to say, explosion. I'm also banning my own stream in the market here. Partly that's because of different regulations that are hampering it. But what has really taken off, pun intended, in a big way is ag drones. And people are buying them by the and completely ignoring the rules. So instead of, let's say, I don't know, a 5 kilo delivery drone or 10 kilo large mapping platform doing the 15Ks and 30Ks across, there's every other farm's got a flipping great big ag drone, and they're heavy, those things. So the kind of the most dangerous thing is happening illegally here. Anyway, that's an aside. Sorry, was it Steve was going to say something?
I just wanted to ask Niall, what are the use cases for the trials that you're actually doing? Because if you're doing BB loss flights there, you mentioned something about medical earlier on there. Is it just medical, or are you doing other types of services as well?
So Blueprint is purely the concept. So we demonstrate the ability to fly beyond what the regulator defines as visual line of sight. And we do it over sensors, and we show all the elements of the airspace change, the operational safety case, the technicalities. We've demonstrated it 3 times already. We're just making it more robust and building it up. In the Open Skies Cornwall project, which is another great project, they are very much more focused on end users. So they've got the NHS on board. I mentioned one use case down there. They're actually, NHS guys are very keen to do this. They've got the Royal Mail. The Royal Mail love the fact it's a Piker drone, so quite a big payload delivery drone under skyports. The Royal Mail, I know, want to do a lot of mid-mile deliveries. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds, but they're going to have to build up to that position. And there's a raft of, there's many, many other things that could be done in Falmouth Harbour, out to the Isles of Scilly, around the military training areas. Lots of things have been found. We only really want to deploy on the use cases that have a commercial use behind them so that they can become real. But at the moment, I think Gary's right. There will be a cap to what people will want to do. It's not infinite. It's not going to explode. But I think once we're flying safely, it's going to grow, and it will grow pretty fast. And we get this big change in the whole balance of airspace use.
I think this year is and just to get back to the title of Bruce's video, I think that it was slightly wrong, because I think what is the industry like in 2024? And I think that that's going to be something which is going to be more questionable than anything else, because what's happening in Europe, we're still really slow here. We are still very, very slow. But there's not much BV loss, if there's anything. I think there's a couple of cases happening, but nothing hugely commercial, nothing hugely.
Pretty serious BV loss in Europe happening at
yes,
the moment.
There is.
Yeah, but I mean, if we look from, let's say, kind of general, like of Wing and all the rest of it, they've stopped operations here. They cannot.
Who cares about them?
But I mean, for just actual operations that are going on, we've had quite a lot of operations which have stopped here. They've actually stopped. They can't get to fly BV loss. They can't get to do it.
I don't know who seriously stopped, other than maybe Wing, but
just on that one, for Amazon and Wing, just stand by. They're going to reappear. There's a thing called Open Air under NATS. The Integrated Traffic Management Service Delivery Group is just stepping up at the moment. That's a whole different debate. We should have that separately another time. But Wing and Amazon are in there.
But I think that the overarching thing of all of this, though, is that the predictions of 10 years ago were way, way, way out of line. Yeah. Way out of line. Yeah. And industry, it is going to get huge. I'm not going to say it's not going to get big, but it's just not as fast as all those pundits said. Yeah, but now, as grown-ups, there's a lot of people. So what the difference between now and 10 years ago would have been? 10 years ago, there'd been a few people thinking, "Oh, those hobbyists thinking, oh, I could put a camera on that. Let's see if it works." I was one of them. And then you've got a few businesses that tried the hobbyists that were the early adopters, and then they go, "Oh, actually, no, we can use that in our survey business, and we do have the right skills," because it's just a hammer. It's just a hammer in a toolbox for somebody that needs it, and it's So they're integrating, and the use cases that are happening now are getting more and more grown up in a correct incremental manner. And it's just not the kapow. Every other child will be making $1 million with it.
We need to have the revenue. Yeah. If we don't have the revenue, and this is the biggest problem, is that we don't have the revenue. I mean, I was using Wing as an example because Wing were about to expand here in Finland, and they had operations running at the east of Helsinki, and they wanted to expand, and they were wanting to do BB loss, and they have their own UTM, all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. And I can't say what actually happened, but I know what happened. And now they've left Finland. And that's...
But Wing's not making any revenue. They're doing it all for free.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just talking in general that we need to see lots of revenue coming in. It's, it's okay that, there are trials happening out there.
Mana in Ireland are making a lot of money.
Mana are the...
Oh yeah, but how much are Mana making? I don't know how much are Mana making.
Well, they're not making so much money because they're still using spotters, so they've got the heavy labor cost.
Exactly.
Okay, but as soon as they remove the spotters, which is just automation, they will start making money because they've got customers, they've got volume, and they've got the range they're delivering over. So there'll be a price point, and as in any market. I was just going to go back to that point about the hype. It's the Gartner hype cycle, right, that does this, and then hockey sticks on the other side. And everybody goes, we had it a lot with eVTOL. It's hype, it's hype, it's hype. You're missing the point. The Gartner hype cycle is about moving from bottom left to top right. Yeah, it does it in a funny, funky way, but you end up in a very different place to where you started before. That's the point of the Gartner hype cycle, not that you have to go through a lot of speculation and exaggeration in order to get there.
Yeah, because I read in 1954 that flying cars were going to be a thing, and they will be.
Come on, aero car.
Yeah, I do think I've been done a huge disservice by the hype, but I suppose that could be applied to every single industry. Every single new technology will have exactly the same manner of stuff, and we've just got to move through this. I quite like. Except Bitcoin, of course. I quite like the fact the 3D renders. Go on the next one. I kind of like the fact that the consumer buying of drones is dying down, and that bit of the bubble's died down, gone away. We've gone past that hype, and then and companies are beginning to use them for grown-up things. Now, where are we going for time-wise? Hour and 41.
I'm still confused. What was the argument about?
I know it's that whole part of that's failed.
Like, from what I understand, you didn't like someone in New Zealand having an opinion on something in the UK that they knew nothing about, but he does.
No, I didn't say nothing about. I didn't say that.
He's terrible, isn't he, Bruce?
It's the title of the thing. We're going to get something. And
well, no, I know that something. Now you've shown us the future, which is the red cube. Now I'm pointing my finger at you, young man. You've shown us the red cube. Oh, all right. Oh yeah. There we are. There we are. What about the future of the future? I know you've got the future. The cube red.
Neil,
the cube red's been shown. What about the future of the future that you also had there?
All right, I think we've got a bit of an internet lag there from my end.
That was just the security services.
All right.
Getting ready, yeah.
I was showing this, which is the red.
Yeah, that's sold hat. We all know about that thing. Yeah, whatever.
But that it's shipping already.
Yeah, whatever. But what about the future of the future? Because that impressed me.
The future is beige.
So I'm going to show you this little sensor pack.
That's not it.
With.
Yeah.
This sort of is it. So this is an air data computer, which allows you to do all sorts of air pressure monitoring. It's pretty cool. It's got 6 differential pressure sensors and 2 absolute pressure sensors. Excuse my stable hands there. There we go. But on it, you see this tiny little circuit board. Now, the reason I do
see that time
is because it's got a little bit more detail visible than the actual production version, which We'll get some little laser markings on it and stuff, but this is the new Cube node. On the back, it looks pretty cool. It's got a whole bunch of pads and things on it.
So that would be an entire CAN-bus-based autopilot then?
Basically, this is yes. This thing could run an FPV drone. That's true, but yeah, that would be a bit of an overkill. This has pretty much the same computing power in it as a Cube Orange minus 2 IMUs. So it has a 6-axis IMU. It has dual CAN. It's got Ethernet PHY and can be used for IoT stuff as well as drone-related stuff. And yeah, so we're going into SOM modules. It's a QFN package, so you can put it down. It'll come in cut tape, so you can put it down with the SMT machine, or you can solder it down yourself if you're really. I can't even get it to focus on those pads. Don't know if you can see the pads along the edge.
Yeah. No, and I've no, here. This is what I call a light bulb holder. Who makes a chip? Says Mitchell. If you're allowed to say,
yeah, as in who makes this thing? We make it. So as in Cube Pilot.
But the chips inside. That's what he
made the chips before. He's been eating them.
Who else? In Taiwan. So yeah.
It's kind of we've added another one of your products on this stream.
7 processor on board, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So
yeah, it's very, very, very cool.
That's a question for now with the mentioning, because I think it was the name to me seems like it's a bit misleading. I've seen the NATS open air thing, and it doesn't look like it's anything open. It looks like it's it's just NATS trying to do management of drones.
Ian's brain's been going tick, 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 tick.
Yeah, I'm trying to do my awkward emoji face because I'm on the committee, but yeah, like I say, I mean that's really kind of a whole nother story. So officially, the CA has asked NATS to come up with this solution, and it will be under the license business. And the license business is ostensibly for some other things, but at the moment it's pushing ahead with an overarching, what I'd probably describe as probably a UTM of UTMs for the UK. We've made some initial kind of comments about it. Like, I mean, Neuron, we charge micropayments, we're charging 30p a flight or something like that, for or even less for a data packet. It should be a low-cost system. This is not going to be a high-cost market.
It's
so
pay
if
to
you
fly, then.
charge drone pilots the same way you do charge airline carriers flying to the States, that's not going to work. Should probably be decentralized, because we know what happens with single points of failure, particularly in that. Don't want to be too close to home, but that's happened a few times, as we know. It should be representative of industry as well. Otherwise, it's not going to be legitimate. And I hope it's going to protect people's IP. And there's a bunch of other concerns. It's very early days yet. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, there's probably a few questions there still.
To answer Mitchell's question, it's an STM32H757 as the main CPU. That's the main CPU in there, which is a dual core. And yes, it's made at TSMC.
Yeah, no, that'll be everywhere. And well, it's going to cost about $5,000 of go then, or something like that.
I think when we announced this last year, we were saying $5,000 just to pull a few people's legs.
For that one.
Prices were going up a bit. It is $1,000, so this one's pretty expensive. This one will be $39. So yeah. So on a little 2-layer carrier board, you've got yourself an FPV flight controller up there. So
will it be on AliExpress?
Yesterday, it's already there. It's already there.
Well, something like it looks similar. Yeah.
The flipping red one will be. That will be.
We pay extra to read it. Doesn't show the blood.
Whether or not this is what they ship you, but there will be pictures of this on AliExpress. The genuine one on AliExpress will cost you a lot more than going to your local distributor, because there's import duty into China for them to be able to ship it out again, or any shipments that come from where I am sitting right now.
Are you selling any here in Finland?
Yeah.
D1?
What's that?
Are you selling it at D1? Is it the D1, or is it somewhere else? Or do you sell? Do you have a distributor here?
We do. Anti from
Anti Lipasti.
No,
Anti Lipasti. Yeah. I thought that was easy. I was right.
So that small controllers is the purpose of that then really just to bring out your pilot to your sub 250s?
No. The purpose is accessories. So CAN bus accessories, Ethernet accessories. That's what it's based around. It'll be able to be used to make ESCs, or to make air data computers, or airspeed sensors, or whatever you feel like. Basically, we like to encourage other people to make stuff, not just us. Hence, the whole carrier board, and encouraging people to do that, etc. We'll take the same sort of mentality with this. We want other people to make lots of drone accessories and sensors of any sort, and Ethernet's definitely where it's heading.
Wow, that's
good. So with Ethernet, what I can understand the purpose of that external to the drone, i.e., you could, basically you could control a drone over the internet essentially. But is there a bigger thought of this of use on the actual drone itself, that would be the communication between devices?
So already companion computers are a thing. So to connect a Cube to a companion computer, so if you're using Cube Red, it's got Ethernet. There's the lovely connector for the Ethernet. It's a nice solid one. It can download your logs at 88 megabit, which if you're doing live download of logs, or live logging, or high rate logging, or using the camera system to do object avoidance and all that sort of stuff, and you're mixing your data back and forward, Ethernet becomes really handy. There's various sensors like LiDARs and things like that come down nowadays with Ethernet as the method of connection. So you want to connect it to your drone, well, you need an Ethernet adapter. So you put something like this between, I've got another toy here somewhere. I've got a board on the way that basically turns this little connector into a Ethernet to CAN or Ethernet to serial device that you can then connect your flight controller with that, and so that an older flight controller can do it as well. So there's things like that, and a lot of cameras these days are coming with Ethernet connectivity. You want to be able to tag each of the images with all your PPK or RTK data when you're doing surveying and stuff like that. Obviously, having that all on the same network just makes that really easy to do, and things like that. So we'll be releasing a little tiny hub at some stage in the future, and there'll be some cool stuff coming from that. So CAN is there for all the normal stuff, but for high data rate stuff, Ethernet is better than CAN. For just general reliability and safety, CAN is better than Ethernet. So, yep.
Just want to put this in.
Lots.
Oh, sorry. What was the answer to that, Philip?
Lots of different protocols, I think, is the thing. Okay. We're going to be CAN over Ethernet, Mavlink over Ethernet, general serial over Ethernet, all sorts of different things. Because it's open source, you can do what you want with it. It's a bit of hardware. Yes, we tend to focus on ArduPilot stuff and what ArduPilot does, but this product is definitely going to break from that. We are going to be doing some IoT stuff as well, and general purpose. Anyone that needs a Ethernet to something bridge, it's a really good thing.
Now, this is definitely going to be the last thing because we're heading up to 2 hours. Bruce sent me this link. What do we think of this white stork thing? We haven't spoken about it much. Will it turn? My thought is, will it turn into a real thing?
Well, the problem when you've got someone like him behind weaponized drones, that's not a good thing for our industry, to be honest. Weaponized drones are obviously topical at the moment, but the truth of it is it's horrific. It's horrible. There's nothing nice to be said about weaponized drones.
Yeah, true enough. And I don't know. Anyone else want to? Bruce, you sent it. What's your thoughts on it?
I know. Yeah, I've had a number of emails from Ukraine and other places wanting me to help them with. I don't know how legit they are, wanting me to help them because I did my cruise missile 20 years ago. And my perspective is I don't want to be responsible for anyone's death directly or indirectly as a result of anything that I would do in that situation. I mean, I just no, I can't. I'm too old to get involved in things that kill people.
Yeah, I've had quite a few emails from over there as well. Oh, well, I say that purporting to be from over there, and you just don't know, do you?
Look at the second link I sent you. Look at the second link I sent you.
I can't open it. Well, I'll open it and I'll show you what happens. It comes up with a hang on. It comes up with a hang on. I'll put it up there. I'll put it up there anyway, and you'll see. You're suggesting that they're late. This unfortunately comes up, but
what does it say?
Oh, you need an account. Yes,
I don't have an account, and I got in. How does that work?
Because I'm not as special as you. That's why.
Okay. Yeah. No, they've developed a kamikaze drone with a jet engine. Isn't that a cruise missile?
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
I suppose. I mean, obviously, Gary knows I've got a slightly different view on the Ukraine thing to Bruce. I think the reality is what the reality is, but I think there's enough people already working on it without companies jumping in the media and hyping about it. There's various people that are helping Ukraine, and I support that. People know.
Yeah, I think. Well, the net result is you shouldn't know about the people that are really doing it. You should, if you're putting it in the press.
You probably don't half the time anyway. But I'll tell you, because I've spoken to a couple of companies doing some drone market surveys. The Ukrainians are doing an amazing job of building their own platforms. There's about 300 new companies. We've heard of drones flying for 24 hours out there, doing all kinds of incredible things, which you would do if you were being invaded. And I think I read the other day the Russians are very serious about building a factory a long way east of Moscow for obvious reasons to kind of counter. So it's becoming the balance of success issue, actually, drones in UK. And if you look back over military history, then what happens during wars is it accelerates technology significantly. And I think that's what we should probably draw, the conclusion we should draw from it from a civil perspective.
I am getting annoyed at some of those surveys because the problem is, a Mavic obviously makes the media, but it's not the fact of what's going on over there, and the facts can't be said. So it's just, the skewed reporting is difficult to watch, and there are a few European drone companies that are just plastering what they're doing over there on LinkedIn all over the place, and it's actually really disturbing, to be honest.
We had a spate of Finnish companies that were approached to let's say purchase a lot of FPV parts and ship them to certain parts of the world, and it was we had realized that this was the Russian FPV cookbook, that there was quite a few. In fact, I think there was 2 Finnish companies that were caught actually supplying. I don't think they knew it because the order was being shipped to like another country. But this has been happening a lot, and there's been quite a few Finnish companies that have been approached.
Changed the whole way we do
this. That's why you have end user certificates, right? That's what they'll end up having applied.
End user certificates don't work in hobby industry. You know, the reality is that what we make, you can use a mobile phone to do. There's no end user certificate for buying a mobile phone. This industry should have been declared sensitive 20-something years ago, and it wasn't, because no one took the threat seriously.
Him over there, him in that corner, him.
And this guy that you say rants on YouTube, he does it for
it's his fault.
To
push that this should have been a restricted industry 20-something years ago because it was too easy to do. And the reality, it is very easy to do. Yes, we make it even easier now. Our intention was not to help bad people. Unfortunately, is exactly what happened. Copies of my designs are being used by bad people. That is fact. And what Bruce says, I remember getting a message very early in the war with a whole bunch of stuff of, look what your equipment did. And it was devastating. It shook me very badly. And I have a friend who is ex-SAS in the Australian Defence Force, who sort of talked me through the realities of war. And, you know, that has changed my perspective a bit, but, you know, I'm not going to be the same person after seeing some of that stuff that I was, and my views on a lot of things have changed dramatically at that time. It is a complex, messy thing, and there's so many rights and so many wrongs in so many different areas that it is just such a field to deal with. And you know, the RG Pilot Code of Conduct is there for a bloody good reason. Sometimes it's frustrating because, you know, there's innovation that could be happening that we're restricting because of the Code of Conduct. But at the end of the day, the developers have every right to not want to have blood on their hands. And you know, that is what it is. But the reality also is no one's doing anything to stop the Chinese clone industry. And in fact, that includes that same team that has the Code of Conduct, absolutely encouraging the rampant copying and proliferation of the technology. You know, that ship is unfortunately sailed. And the bad stuff is happening. It's going to continue to happen. And, you know, so I tend to have the point of view of the good guys should be allowed to have at least as much as the bad guys can get. But, you know, in Ukraine, I see it pretty cut and dry. Russia's the bad guys. Ukrainians are the good guys. I know there's people, strange people that seem to be aligning with Russia for whatever reason, but, you know, stuff them, I don't care. But the reality is, I think that one's cut and dry. There are going to be other conflicts. Sudan's a great example. You know, some of the good guys, are they really the good guys versus who's the bad guys? And there are people using drones over there as well. Now, I use Sudan as an example because my dad spends time there. You know, so that concerns me. And stuff like that's going on. So it is a very serious issue, but I think it's really important that that issue is not the issue that is used to deal with hobbyists. Otherwise, seriously, are we going to put remote ID on Toyota Land Cruisers, Toyota Hiluxes, and any other vehicle for that matter? I mean,
you've got to remember that soldiers wear boots into war and we wear boots to go tramping. There's no connection.
Exactly. Hiking for everyone else around the world.
You saw the look of confusion there on the rest of our faces.
I'm talking about hanging out with tramps in alleys.
Yeah, exactly. It's a funny place, New Zealand. No, we're coming all the way back round. It's a funny place, New Zealand. There we are. We're going all the way. That would make it a very good place, as we've gone to 2 hours and 4 minutes to call an end to this, what was supposed to be an epic battle and wasn't. So it's very, very disappointing in many ways. No, but it's been a really good conversation. Thank you very much, Neil, and thank you very much, Steve, for so much of your time. It's been very interesting, and unfortunately, as so often happens, so sensible. Never mind. No, it's good. I think the takeaway for me is that, as it often turns out, is we just all need to be working together in peace and harmony, man. No, but we all need to be working together. We all want a safe sky. Simple as. That's it. It's really easy. And we're making
we screen a little bit.
Sorry, mate.
Can you put these two together so they can kiss and make up? Come on.
Other way, Steve. Other way. Yeah. Every raise a candle now. Start singing. We are the world. We are. That's it. Yes. Hang on. I'll set fire to something. Oh no, that's the other Ian. That's the other one. Right, dear viewer, wherever you are in the world, look after yourselves. Thank you very much for your comments. We'll see you again, 2100 GMT. That's what I need. 2100 GMT. Next week with bitters for Philip with bitters. We know what that's about. Cheers, everyone. Take care.